This year at the Pokémon World Championships, if you were lucky enough to go, you were given the opportunity to play a demo for Legends Z-A. This has given me and every other Pokémon content creator tons of footage to analyse, whether that's the new battle mechanics, out-of-bound exploration, or the whole goddamn map. If you've watched any of my videos, you know exactly what part we'll be focusing on today. Once again, I couldn't help myself. I redrew the whole map, this time from said demo footage, resulting in a more detailed and accurate version than I previously made. When looking at the map, there was one detail that stuck out to me most, and that was these buildings that are highlighted in a darker shade of red. The common theme of these buildings, from what we already know, is that they could be entered, like Hotel Z, Quasartico, or even this shopping arcade. This sparked my curiosity for a specific set of buildings, the gates that surround the city. So that leaves me with one big question. Are we allowed to leave Lumiose City? Having said that, the goal for today will be to take a look at all these highlighted buildings, and see if I can identify them either from the trailers or from X and Y. Instead of making you wait for the good bit, we'll jump right in and discuss the gates that surround Lumiose leading out to the roots of Kalos. There are 5 of these, one for each district, all facing out from their respective plaza. From the Vert district we have Route 4, Bleu, Route 5, Magenta, Route 13, Rouge, Route 14, and Jaune, Route 16. The fact that these gates are highlighted is quite perplexing. I'm not so deluded as to believe that we can exit Lumiose City, but it does still bring into question why they are being presented as buildings that we can enter, or even just buildings of some significance. In my ideal world, these gates would at least give us a taste of the outside world, letting us either explore that adjacent route, or take us to some of the landmarks within Kalos, such as Parfum Palace, Anastar City, or perhaps at long last, Kalos' power plant. In all honesty, I don't believe this will be the case. I'm already happy with what the game seems to be offering from what it has presented to us, so I'm not expecting anything quite like what I mentioned. One idea I do have that would seem more likely is that these gates will be used as a location to manage teams who will scout out the roots of Kalos and bring back new Pokémon, opening up new wild zones for us to capture them. Either way, for now, I'll keep my fingers crossed. That said, we've still got plenty more locations to discuss and speculate about, so we'll start off with... There are a few buildings that we've had a good look at so far, as well as some iconic landmarks that were present in X and Y, the most iconic of which being Prism Tower. While in X and Y, this tower was home to the 5th gym, run by the electric type trainer Clemon. We aren't certain what its purpose will be in this game. A safe assumption is that this will be where the Z-A Royale will be run, perhaps with a stadium for higher ranked battles. It could also take a slightly less pivotal role and just once again be home to Clemon, who will fight in a rank up battle. Moving on to a more certain location, we have Hotel Z. This will act as our base throughout the game, and is where we'll be introduced to AZ, the hotel's owner, as well as leader and Naveen of Team NZ. Another pivotal landmark will be Quasartico. Quasartico is owned by Jet, who is spearheading the urban redevelopment of Lumiose. Therefore, I presume that this will most likely act as our hub for the progression of the wild zones, where we can manage new zones that will appear across the city. This building will also most likely act as a key location for the story to unfold. The station that we've seen in the trailers is where we will start the game. From demo footage, we are told that this station is called Gare de Lumiose, which straight up translates to Lumiose Station. If you remember from X and Y, there was already a train station named this. However, this one is new and is described in the following. The train station was constructed as part of the urban redevelopment plan. It connects Lumiose City to the airport. First of all, this states the existence of an airport, something we've not previously seen, but also brings into question, is the old station still in use? The old Lumiose station could be found at the edge of the Jaune district, the same place as from X and Y. It turns out this station is actually within Wild Zone 6, on the opposite side of the street to this shop. This is another reason to question whether it is in use, even despite it still being an enterable building. We move back down to the Vert district, where we can find Sycamore's lab, or as it is called now, the Pokémon Research Lab, since Mabel has taken the position of acting director. This is where we will report back our findings as we fill out our Pokédex and research the wild zones. Another important building seems to be the base of the Rust Syndicate. The boss of the Syndicate, Corbeau, seems to have some presence in the plot and will perhaps be an important player. However, they are also participating in the Z-A Royale, meaning we will have to fight them in a promotion match. Since we now know the promotion matches will be against important characters as well as in unique locations, we'll have to take this into account when analysing some of these buildings, especially the ones new to Z-A. This is why I previously suggested fighting Clement in Prison Tower. Next we have another old building being Hotel Richemay, found north of Lumiose at the edge of the Rouge district. In X and Y, this building didn't serve much purpose, and I don't expect that to really change. The best I can see is this acting as the location for another promotion match. Down the road we have the Lumiose Museum, another one of these locations used to fill out Lumiose City back in X and Y. So while enterable, I don't expect much more than what we saw back then. Maybe some new pieces of art hung up in its gallery. To finish up all these buildings we know the name and exact location of, we have the Pokémon Centers. In the demo, 9 of which were marked, spread out in a way that makes me believe that these are all of them. We are now brought to all the buildings that I am uncertain of. I used the map from X and Y to attempt to match up all these buildings that were in the game, and while most of these do line up incredibly well, we're still yet to see any definitive evidence of their name and location from the trailers or the map. Within the trailers we have seen a couple shopping arcades. These are where we'll be able to buy new outfits and customize our character. From the map there are 3 locations I can identify as an arcade, as they have roofs similar to these real world examples. The most obvious of which being the dome in the Rouge district. There's also a couple of locations you could customize your character in X and Y, Boutique Couture and Corfo Eclipse. Corfo Eclipse can be seen in the same location on the corner of the street leading towards Bleu Plaza. Boutique Couture on the other hand isn't as exact. Where the shop once was now seems to be 2 separate buildings. For the time being I'm going to guess that this is the northernmost one. One of the most abundant businesses in Lumiose City is the cafe. To save myself from having to pronounce each and every one of these, I'm just going to highlight them all for you. Most of these line up pretty well. For instance, Cafe Cyclone is on the same corner southeast of Vert Plaza. However, there is one that seems to be missing, if not misplaced, and perhaps for good reason. That being Lysander Cafe. In X and Y, this cafe acted as a front for one of Team Flare's hideouts, so it would be understandable if this cafe shut down. But also a little disappointing for it not to return and be of some plot significance in Z-A. That said, there is one building in this vicinity on the opposite side of the street from where we would expect this cafe to be. There is also no past location that matches this spot, so could perhaps be Lysander Cafe. One issue I've noticed is that in these trailers, whenever we have seen a cafe, there has always been a waiter outside. This reminds me of recent games where you haven't actually been allowed inside the buildings, and are just given a menu when talking to these shopkeepers. While this could straight up debunk my theory, I'm also worried how this will impact the game. Another common business are the restaurants. Both Restaurants Lenar and Le Hier can be found in their usual place, along with Sushi High Rollers. However, Restaurant Le Wow we'll have to get back to. In the Vert district along Vernal Avenue there used to be a line of shops, the Stone Emporium where you could buy evolutionary stones, Herbariste that sold medical herbs, and then Frisier Furfru, a hairdresser's for Furfru. Back in X and Y all these buildings were adjacent to one another, along with Cafe Wolf. Now, though it seems that while the Stone Emporium and Herbariste are in the same place, the former 2 have been moved further up the street, with either one actually being next to Bleu Plaza. Next, on Estival Avenue, on the corner of the street that leads down to Bleu Plaza, we should be able to find the Lumiose Press. Following that, on Autumnal Avenue, there is the Pokeball Boutique. Finally, for the less mysterious buildings, we have this gazebo. Yes, a gazebo. Now, I say less mysterious, but there is another gazebo we can see on the map. This one though, we cannot enter. So, if I was a nutter, I'd say that this gazebo in the Jaune district is actually the entrance to a hidden base below this garden. Well, if not, it must have some sort of significance, right? This brings us to the next segment, our more speculative buildings. Here we have buildings yet to be identified, although there are some like this manor which are hard to miss. The problem is this fancy building has yet to be discussed in the trailers. There's a chance that we have seen the interior, but I'm still unsure how this manor will fit in. Similarly, we have this large building. Assumptions I've heard before is that this is a school, due to the characters we see in this shot who seem to be students. Where this building is located though is also the exact position where we could find Restaurant Luau in X and Y. Which brings me to one of my theories. I predict that all three Lair restaurants have actually been combined, let's call it Restaurant Lanu, and are now either this school or the manor I previously mentioned. Moving over to the Jean district, we have this, what I'm going to presume is a museum. It just gives me those vibes. In X and Y, this was actually where you could find Trevor's house. Either he made it big and had some home improvements, or that whole residence was uprooted. I will then take us to the other side of the map in the Magenta district. There are a pair of buildings right here, which weren't previously anything. This area now seems to actually be a substation, and is right next to the gate that leads to Kalos' power plant. I don't imagine much will happen here, but it is odd that there are two of them. The only cafe beside Lysander's I couldn't find is Cafe Batali. This was located in the Jean district, opposite the old Lumiose station, and therefore inside Wild Zone 6. It's definitely weird that only one cafe is missing, but I guess not that odd for a business to shut down after 10 years. While we are here, right next to the station, we should be able to find the Battle Institute. Alas, we do not. I actually only just noticed the Battle Institute while writing the script, so hadn't realised that there were two missing businesses along with a potential defunct train station with a Wild Zone now in their place. Another missing establishment is the juice shop. Unless my Restaurant Lanu theory is true, there is no building that we can see in the same location that the juice shop would be. At last it's time for some good news. The Lotto Idea Centre is missing. It used to be down Estival Avenue, next to the Lumiose Press, but there is no enterable building here. Unless for some reason they decided to keep this over the press. I don't expect that to be the case though. It was always a pretty pointless feature, and I'm not sure anyone used it more than once. We will now discuss all the buildings I was unable to identify, as they don't seem to have a counterpart from X and Y. I have managed to spot 6 of these. However, there is one that we've had a decent look at from the trailers. This building can be found on the corner of the street in the Vert district, directly in front of the station we arrived from. The giant satellite dish does feel like it should be indicative of the building's purpose, but alongside the giant sign on the front and the interior of the building, which doesn't seem to be displaying any sort of information about it, I'm at a loss as what it is. My best guess, radio station? All these other buildings though, I'll keep an eye out for in the future, as I'm not sure what they could be. My biggest stop when it comes to this theory turns out to be Lucas Bureau. This is a location we've seen a lot throughout the trailers, and is now under the management of Emma. When taking a look at these shots, one might notice that it is unchanged from its past appearance. This would lead me to believe that Lucas Bureau should be in the same location as in X and Y, which on the map is labelled as a vacant storefront. If we take a look at our new map from the demo, this building is not highlighted. The problem then becomes we've seen footage inside this building, therefore we must be able to enter it, so why isn't it denoted as such? One answer to this could be that the highlighted buildings aren't solely ones that can be entered, more so just buildings of note, as I mentioned before when discussing the waiters outside of cafes. In favour of the game though, this could also suggest that we are able to enter other buildings than those I've identified today. Well, that's every notable building I was able to identify, or unable to identify, within Lumiose City. Until I'm disproven, I will stand by my theory that all these highlighted buildings are enterable, and we'll just have to ignore Lucas Bureau for the time being. There are plenty of eye-catching buildings left that we are yet to learn about, whether they are central spots for plot developments, or arenas for our promotion matches. I'm definitely looking forward to discovering what sort of part they'll play. If you have any theories for these locations, make sure to drop them in the comments. And if you'd like to see me delve further on any landmarks like potential wild zones we'll see, please let me know, as the encouragement goes a long way. I hope to see you next time, and enjoy the rest of your day.